It's an amazing planet filled with amazing plants and animals and all of us.
We have a responsibility to keep this planet healthy.
Water, air, energy, the soil, everything is connected.
It's been 12 years since we came together with a unified message. Let's rid this incredible planet of the chemicals that are killing it.
Do what we can today in cleaning up the mistakes of the past.
The global environment is in danger, and we need to address toxic chemicals.
Our earth is really sick. We are here to call for action.
We've accomplished a lot, but there's so much more to do.
I'm Evelyn Swain.
And I'm Anil Sukhdev. We are a part of the Global Environment Facilities team that is working hard to reduce the effects that dangerous chemicals have on people all over the world.
With more than 3,200 Jeff projects in over 165 countries, it's impossible to show you everything. But we're going to take you on a journey to meet just a few of the amazing people who are partnering with the Jeff to make a difference.
DDT has been implicated in serious health and environmental problems.
Many of the people don't even know about the existence of PCBs.
If we don't try to reduce the amount of POPs today, the Earth's support system may be irrevocably damaged.
What are the levels going to be in 100 years' time if we don't do anything now? We have to change our lifestyles.
We're trading in our suits for some boots. We're gonna hit the road and see some of these projects for ourselves. It's gonna be an adventure and a real privilege to see the amazing work that our partners are doing.
Anil and I can't wait to meet the boots on the ground. Anil and I are flying into General Santos, the southernmost city of the Philippines.
As the plane begins descending, we can see billowing smoke from what looks like a runway on fire, but it turns out to be where we are headed, a burning trash dump.
We know what chemicals are likely in this smoke, but sometimes nothing can prepare you for the horrific reality on the ground.
Within an hour of landing, we meet up with Theory Dumagan, a city administrator who drives us straight into a wall of smoke and fire. Oh my God!
As we drove through the rancid smoke for the first time, we could make out shadows of darker areas. And it wasn't until we got closer that I realized that those shadows were people working in the dump, trying to make a living.
Evelyn, look at this.
It's just a blanket of smoke as far as the eye can see. And just think of these people every day working here, inhaling this smoke and the fumes. I've never seen anything like this ever. We're here in General Santos City at this open dump site. It's one of 6 open dump sites that we're working on through the Jeff project. And this one here is different from a landfill because this has no lining, no protection, no regulations. A landfill is lined and regulated so that the leachate doesn't go into the environment. All of the trash from General Santos is brought in and dumped at this site. The new trash is delivered here on the edge. They pick through it, and then it's pushed over the side.
The waste pickers make their living collecting plastic and other materials that can be sold to be recycled. Everything comes in here. There's no segregation of the recyclables, of metals, things that have value, or compostable materials. So everything gets in here. That can lead to fires like this. Jordy, I'm looking at this site and it's on fire. Can you tell me how dangerous this is.
So we see a lot of plastics in this temporary disposal facility, and we know for a fact that there are dioxin and furans as part of the chemicals composition in the plastics.
This smoke is just full of dioxins and furans going into the environment. We can see what's burning, and it's plastic and all the things that we know have these harmful chemicals in them.
Are you concerned about the health of the waste pickers right now in this facility?
Yes, we encourage them to look for another livelihood, and I think there's really a need to properly close the facility in order to protect the health of the community.
In this dump, we find families with children who live in these dangerous conditions.
There was a family with 7 young kids living right in the line of smoke. As I watched them playing, I noticed their raspy coughs and the cuts and sores on their arms and legs. I wondered, even if they do get out of this dump soon, what kind of long-term health effects are these chemicals that they breathe day in and day out gonna have? Rose Lejito leads a group of waste pickers here at General Santos.
So are they having any negative health impacts? Are they feeling sick ever?
Sige mga sakit nga imong gibati sa imong lawas. So ubo. Karamihan most they feel coughing.
They're having a cough.
They're exposed directly to it. We're being exposed to it now, but once it hits the atmosphere, this exposes everyone else. This goes up into the Arctic. Polar bears get it. Inuit communities get it. That's why it's a global issue. That's why it's a pop, and that's why we have to deal with it.
The GEF, the World Bank, and the Environmental Management Bureau are working with 6 local governments to improve the management of open dumps. The goal is to reduce the release of dioxins and furans.
Through the work of the GEF, local governments here in General Santos City, the World Bank and other partners, it will be closed and converted to a sanitary landfill.
When you're here, you see how big of a partnership it is. The GEF with the local governments, with the stakeholders, even down to the people who are working here.
When we talk about dedicated partners who do the work, there's no better example than Del Marino Valdez.
So we have 3 gases that is being measured.
She willingly goes into the smoky pit to sample the air because she knows how important the data is.
These 6 sites will hopefully demonstrate to the rest of the local governments in the Philippines how to reduce the releases of the unintended POPs.
This work is so critical, and this landfill isn't the biggest landfill in the world. This is just one of thousands. We can't fix all of them, but what we can do is provide a model for local governments to follow that really works. We can demonstrate how to close these dump sites down and how to better the communities.
It will be hard to ever forget the sights and smells of these dumps in the Philippines. Later, we'll see just how far these toxins are traveling. But for now, Mexico is calling. Our next stop takes us to a community not far from Mexico City. The water plant is about 50 years old, and the electric transformer has been tested and found to have high levels of PCBs. Once they leak into the water or soil, they are very harmful, and that's why our projects like this one in Mexico are so important.
It is a sensitive site because it is a water well that supplies water to the municipality, and we found out that it had PCBs within the transformer.
That's the bad news. The good news is that we're going to witness the removal of the PCBs from the transformer.
Today, a team led by Mexico's Ministry of the Environment and Natural Resources, UNDP, and SEMTREDI are ready to remove the PCBs. And Anil is very excited to see how it's done.
I want to see it open. So Evelyn, this is going to be a PCB containing oil.
Wow, Anil, that looked just like regular oil coming out.
It does, and that's why it's important to educate people that it isn't. It's an extremely toxic substance, and you need to know the difference between regular oil and PCB containing oil. I was really impressed with the process and the crew that performed the retrofit. In just a matter of hours, the PCBs were carefully removed and placed in sealed shipment barrels. The transformer was cleaned and new PCB-free fluid installed. So if you didn't have this PCB project, what would have been the situation today?
Well, the situation today would be that still nothing would have been done. Now people tell us that we opened their eyes.
Disposing of PCBs is costly, but relatively easy. It's finding them that's the hard part. Sometimes PCB-containing equipment is in junk piles. Sometimes they end up in recycling centers where operators are unaware of the dangerous chemicals in them. And sometimes they end up in places like Jesus diezes.
So these have a lot of really valuable metals in them, right? Can you recycle them?
Sí, mira, cuando nosotros reparamos un equipo.
Jesus is just one of the recyclers who works with Guillermo to ensure that every transformer that comes in is properly dealt with.
PCBs, or polychlorinated biphenyls, were used in electrical equipment years ago, but millions of liters of the chemical are still sitting inside aging equipment, such as transformers.
This equipment, a few weeks ago, was working on the field, and it was taken because it was found out that they had BPCs in them.
This facility and others like it have collected over 2,500 tons of oil and contaminated material and equipment in just 4 years. This represents 10% of the PCB inventory in Mexico. The equipment and oil have come from big and small entities alike.
Once we have unloaded the transformers, they remove the nucleus where the parts were soaked in the PCB's oils. So what we will do now is to remove these nuclei and insert them in the green box behind. It is an autoclave that with pressure and with a solvent will remove all the remaining PCBs.
The Jeff funds projects around the world to collect these dangerous PCBs and contaminated equipment and ship them to approved treatment facilities such as Treddy's facility in France, where they are properly treated and incinerated.
The disposal facility here in Mexico is filled with transformers that still have PCBs. So in order for us to get a closer look, we have to suit up.
These are PCB-containing transformers. They were being used in communities across Mexico, posing a threat to human health and the environment. Through the Jeff UNDP project, they were brought here to this state-of-the-art decontamination facility to be disposed of properly. And the great news is that these are never going to pose a threat to humans here in Mexico ever again.
It was a bit overwhelming to see all of these transformers and to realize that there are tens of thousands just like them that have yet to be found.
As we leave Mexico behind, it's inspiring to see how Guillermo and his team, and indeed teams in other countries, are working to rid the planet of these toxic chemicals. Just like these PCBs, which will be going on a journey, Evelyn and I are off again to see the next project on our journey. There are hundreds of Jeff-funded projects throughout Africa, in all of the Jeff focal areas. We've come to Tanzania to see 2 projects that have huge human health implications.
Our first stop is in Morogoro, a harrowing 4-hour drive from Dar es Salaam. We arrive at what used to be a large DDT storage facility.
There are a dozen workers busy loading containers filled with toxic material from the site. And this is bulk DDT, so it's solid form, it's not liquid. This is what they would then formulate to be sprayed. The Jeff Africa Stockpile Project has one goal: find as much obsolete hops as possible and get rid of them.
So some of the pesticides were in here?
Yeah, especially those solid big bags.
Samuel Masangi is with the Tanzanian Ministry of Environment. He showed us the warehouse that used to hold tons of obsolete pesticides, and he said this is just one of 155 known storage facilities in Tanzania.
Over 1,000 tons of chemicals, including DDT and other POPs pesticides, have been removed here in Tanzania. We're lucky to be here today to see this last shipment going out. It doesn't get any better than this.
The safe disposal means that local communities like this one and others around Tanzania will no longer be impacted by these toxic substances.
Yeah, in Morogoro.
No one is more pleased about seeing the last of the DDT removed than Anthony Calamilla. He runs a farmers cooperative, and he has this message for all of the partners of the project.
We are very happy to see that you have assisted a lot to remove all those chemicals, simply because on our own we could not afford to remove those.
In many ways, dealing with a warehouse full of obsolete pesticides is easier than something as insidious as medical waste.
Mercury from broken thermometers, infectious syringes contaminated with HIV and hepatitis and much more are thrown away or burned every day.
When not treated properly, the toxins from this medical waste winds up like all other chemicals in our air, soil, and water. Heat is one of the only things that can safely treat biological waste, and incinerators are widely used to burn hospital waste.
However, technically advanced incinerators that only emit small amounts of dangerous POPs are not affordable in most developing countries.
Even with advanced filters and elevated emission towers, they still can release dangerous dioxins and furans. A few minutes ago, these red barrels containing medical hazardous waste was removed from the hospital next door. They contain the remains of medical procedures, bloody bandages, any infectious material. What you're seeing here is that it's been put into an autoclave. This was designed and built here through a UNDP Jeff grant. And so I'm going to flip the switch, and this will be my own little part in helping to reduce medical waste that's badly treated. So here we go. And there we go.
The project is very, very important, not only to Tanzania, but for many developing countries, because you have a lot of health centers and district hospitals which do not have proper hospital waste management equipment.
But it's not just big hospitals that are faced with challenges of medical waste disposal. Driving through the Tanzanian countryside, we notice a small health clinic, and we stop to see how they deal with it. Esther Bell is the nurse for the clinic. She told us that the clinic treats patients for everything, from malaria to HIV. The day we arrived, Esther was preparing to dispose of some of their medical waste.
These here are used syringes that they use here at the clinic that we're going to dispose of in the pit out back.
Esther showed us where the pit was. In one way, it was quite shocking to see, but in another, it was a great opportunity for us to see this problem firsthand for ourselves. This practice is what we're trying to fix with these medical waste projects. You can see there are syringes, there's dirty bandages. This is generally burnt here.
Is it a safety issue having it?
Busiro Anoka is the clinic doctor. She told us that they have no other alternative but to burn the waste when the pit is full.
So when you burn the wastes, do you know what's in the smoke that comes out of the pit?
We know that from the smoke we can get the biohazard gases. But when the pit is full, we have no alternative. That is the question.
It's clear that even in the small clinics, they understand the dangers associated with burning their medical waste. I hope that one day we might come through here again and find them using a safer and cleaner method of disposal. So far on our journey, we've seen toxic landfills and PCB-laden transformers. We've witnessed the removal of tons of DDT, but I think our visit here in China is about what we didn't see. Just a few years ago, there was a large chemical plant right here.
So this is where the factory used to be. This was a factory just even 4 years ago.
It was one of 8 in China that produced Mirex and Chlordane, 2 POPs pesticides used to control termites.
It's so close to these residential areas.
Yeah, I mean, these people were living here when this plant was here. The Jeff's portfolio in China is our largest, and it's these kinds of projects that are a serious step forward in reducing the impact of chemicals.
How hazardous was this place?
Juan Ren is the project coordinator, and he said that highly toxic chemicals were emitted from this place. They posed a significant health hazard to both the local community and to all of us. The successful implementation of the Jeff project enables local residents to live in a healthier environment. This particular project, it completely phased out the production of these 2 chemicals in all of China, which is in itself a really big deal. And more than that, you've shown how you can adapt technologies and practices to even use less chemicals.
So our mission on this trip was really to get on the ground and see how these projects are working on the ground, see how they're using the funds, see how sustainable the projects are, the impacts of the project. And here in China, we've really seen that through this termite project. Now we're here at this National Historic Site, seeing the impacts that it's having to preserve this true historic wonder.
The chemical plant is gone, but the termites that plague the country are still a problem. I was curious to see how they deal with the termites without using Chlordane or Mirex.
Yeah, here they are all along here.
The solution is this simple trap. I'm here today looking at a termite trap, which is part of the Mirex and Chlordane elimination program. So can you tell me what the trap does?
We trap the termites. After the termites enter into the device, then we touch in the chemical on the termites. Termites go back to the nest.
And then that kills the colony.
Yes.
There are 450 species of termites in China, and they create significant damage each year. It's not just homes that are affected. Many of China's great historical treasures are also at risk. But the combination of traps and treatment is working. We love it when there's good data behind a project. Labs like this one are an integral part of establishing best practices.
So we're here in Hangzhou, China, in the termite lab. And this lab's really important because they're actually collecting the data from the projects here.
Li Jing here is analyzing these soil samples that they took from the IPM site, where they're using soil dusting to replace Chlordane and Mirex for termite control. And she weighs out specific amounts of this so that they want to test that they're not overusing the chemicals.
As we travel through the countryside on the way to our next destination, it's impressive to see China's immense industrialization.
And to see some of the work that China is doing to protect its 1 billion citizens from dangerous chemicals gives a strong signal to the rest of the world.
In Swahili, the Kenyan national motto is Harmbi, which means let's all pull together.
The more projects we visit, the more we see how everything is connected, how people are working together to solve serious problems. Here in Kenya, the Jeff UNEP projects play a crucial role in helping us understand how chemicals are impacting the earth.
We're on our way to Mount Kenya to see how air samples are collected for the global monitoring program. But along the way, we're making a pit stop in the rice fields where Clifford Matero is developing a method of killing malaria-carrying mosquitoes without harming the environment.
If you look closely there, can you see that trigger?
Oh, they're swimming.
Yeah.
Clifford's work is based on hard science. In order to stop the spread of malaria, you first have to understand how mosquitoes carry it. And that means you have to catch them.
Those are the malaria. This is the species that carries malaria.
These mosquito larvae contain important clues for Clifford's research. As part of the Jeff, UNEP, and WHO project, alternatives to harmful pesticides are identified and demonstrated. In this area, they're using BTI, biopesticides. Clifford explains how it works.
You can see the granules. That is derived from naturally occurring bacteria.
So it's not going to hurt the cows in the field over there?
They can drink this water, it will not harm them.
So can we see how it works?
Yeah, sure.
Tell me a little bit about the importance of the work that you do in regard to helping reduce malaria, but also helping reduce toxic chemicals.
About 10 years ago, if you came here, almost 20 out of every 100 school children had malaria parasites in their blood. Currently, there is hardly anything. We've not used any drop of DDT, and what that goes to show is that if you combine some of the other interventions like BTI to kill mosquito larvae, use of bed nets to protect people inside their houses, you can get rid of malaria without endangering the lives of people through other side effects or through the toxic effects of chemicals like DDT.
Irene Guattari is part of Clifford's research team. She applies the non-toxic bacteria in hopes that it benefits the nearby village.
They're neighbors.
The work that Clifford and his team are doing is not only helping this village, but will ultimately help villages all over the world that suffer from malaria.
It's good to know that these children won't be exposed to harmful chemicals such as DDT. But as we're about to learn at our next location, even if you aren't exposed directly to a chemical, you can have it in your blood. And that's exactly the kind of information that is collected as part of UNEP's breast to milk sampling project.
Our next stop is to meet Dr. Luticia Kanja. She's working on an extremely important initiative through UNEP, which samples the breast milk of mothers who are nursing their newborns.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Swain.
Rosemary Nagoto is a proud mother. She was brave enough to allow us into her home, along with Dr. Kanja, to see how the samples are collected.
This is the milk sample that we just took that's going to be part of the global monitoring project that we're doing at the Jeff. And these mother's milk samples are so important because it's one of the ways we tell how many POPs are in humans. We want to make sure that these chemicals are prevented from getting into the environment. And one of the ways we track that is through mother's milk. So thank you for participating.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be part of this.
Dr. Kanja and nurse Margaret Muita travel throughout Kenya to collect their samples. Their efforts will provide solid data on how many chemicals are being passed from one generation to the next.
In order to solve a problem, you have to know what it is. And our final destination on this mission is where answers are found atop the windswept Mount Kenya. But first, we have to get there.
Our destination is an air monitoring station.
Here we come.
And our guide is Charles Marikow of the University of Nairobi.
I've been looking forward to this hike up Mount Kenya for 3 weeks now, but I'm afraid that Charles is going to spoil the fun by telling me what's actually in the air.
He reminds us that the crisp, thin air that we're breathing might not be what we think it is.
It looks okay. Nice view, nice place. But sometimes what you see isn't what it is.
And what do you usually find up here?
All manner of sorts of things that you wouldn't imagine at this place. Pesticides and dioxins and furans.
Just as I suspected, but still, I wanted to see how they know for sure that those chemicals are up here.
Where we are now is our sampling station on Mount Kenya, where we have background samplers. What we are doing here is to collect comparable data for global monitoring plan.
Vincent Madadi works with Charles Marikow, and he says without international support, doing the GMP project would not be possible.
In developing countries, we do not have the capacity to sample and analyze persistent organic pollutants. And so the UNEP-JEF project came in to help build the capacity of developing countries to be able to sample ambient air and mother's milk, and also to be able to analyze persistent organic pollutants.
The GMP program, the Global Monitoring Program, was formulated to enable the developing countries to be able to report back POPs data
to be able to contribute to the information pertaining to POPs in the environment globally.
The foam filter inside of these metallic samplers will collect the air, and it will be meticulously analyzed.
This is great. This is where the science happens. This is what it's all about.
So air goes in and out, okay? But as it goes through, the POPs which are in gas phase would be trapped by the polyurethane foam filter.
There are 15 monitoring stations throughout Africa, providing the scientific data that Charles hopes will motivate people to change their behavior.
We have to change our lifestyles. We have to do something. We have to look at areas in which we're generating these POPs and look for ways and means of eliminating, if possible, the sources.
Charles is right. Our planet can only absorb so many toxins. As we end our mission, I'm reminded of the urgency of our work.
Our amazing journey around the world allowed us to walk in the boots of the dedicated people who do the work on the ground in our partner countries.
They're working hard every day to protect all of us and this incredible planet.
I think what I take away from this trip is a new appreciation of everyone who's on the ground implementing these projects.
Without getting our feet dirty, we would not have the appreciation for those projects that we do. It's all about finding solutions to these tough global environmental problems.
I mean, there is limited funding available in the developing countries to do this kind of work. And Jeff has come out so strong, it supported us so much.
We're doing a lot to protect these global commons, the air, the water, the land, but you also see the great need to do more.
We need everybody's role in it. Then not any single person or sector can solve this problem.
We need to work together. We need to work through partnerships to address toxic chemicals and toxic waste. We're ingesting these chemicals. They're making us sick and they're killing us. And we need to address this problem, and it's an urgent problem. We need to get after it today.
That's why we would like to see a very strong coalition of governments, industry and civil society partnering towards a world totally free of POPs.
Thank you, thank you.
The challenge is so enormous that we just need to step up our effort. It's not the problem of your future generation, it's actually the problem of our current generation. So please join us before it gets too late.